Live on Building in Public with Nonya. Welcome, Nonya.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm glad you could join us.
Yeah, I'm
And
so excited because ever since you did the improv workshop, which I sadly missed, I've been hearing about it from so many people in
Oh,
so many contexts, like especially DK. I feel like you have brought this up so many times, just like everyone needs to be doing this.
yeah, but yeah, I mean, I loved the session. My background actually did a lot of theater and stuff growing up, and used to play these kinds of improv games. But that was, geez, 25 years ago. I mean, I haven't touched it in forever. And so, kind of the way you ran the session really got just unlocked everybody's energy and really made it all work. And I really loved the session. It was like, I think one of my favorite Renaissance Collective events that I've been able to attend. So thanks for hosting that.
yeah. I think a lot of times when people hear improv and comedy, they're thinking, oh, shoot, I've got to be funny. I've got to be on a stage. I've got to like do all these super scary things that I could fail at. And I don't really, I was like, yeah, that does sound horrible. I wouldn't want to do that. Um, so my goal is really more around like creating fun and safe spaces, and doing that like through with laughter and games as this conduit
Yeah.
for creating safe spaces. But it's really, I mean, I don't see it as teaching comedy. I see it as more of just enjoying what can come out of play. So.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think I think the way you set it up, in fact, you told everybody we don't have to be here to be funny. And
Yeah.
I think that makes everybody feel comfortable so that you don't feel like you have to be in that kind of comedy escalation show off mode. You can just sort of be more relaxed. But of course, like I mean, a lot of fun stuff comes out of that, I think, when people are relaxed.
Yeah, definitely,
Yeah.
definitely.
How did you
And
first
so,
get into it? Like, did you have some of that apprehension in the beginning too? That's
Um,
totally like, yeah.
well, my improv journey lines up really well with like my startup journey. They're very intertwined. I had my first taste of improv when I was in business school. I was, I had like a session with an executive coach, and she was saying, she's like, you're really good at like, when you're excited about something, you're really good at like just getting other people excited. You should do sales. And there was this sales competition, that it was called, what was it? The Bold Sell, the BS competition, which is basically, it is super fun because it's where you sell made up like products that are made up on the spot. So they had this improv company come in and teach us how to just make up stuff on the spot. And so that was my first kind of like taste. And I did really well. I got second place in the competition, and
oh wow.
it was like fun. And that was like my first taste of it. Fast forward, I started my own startup. It was a horrible experience. I had all of the lows of startup life and none of the highs. I'm being anyway, as I was kind of like figuring out, okay, what do I do coming out of that experience? I had been such a workaholic in that period, and I was really struggling with some social anxiety. The like very classic, like, what should I say? Like, what should I say? What should I say when people ask me about how I'm feeling about my startup or blah, blah, blah. And I was talking to a therapist, and they were like, it sounds like you just need to have more fun. Maybe try improv. And it was like this was not a prescription in any sort. It was just kind of like, you just need more fun. So I signed up for a class, and I loved it. And yeah, I just kept doing that. And then I got on a performing team. And then I started doing these workshops that were like improv for startups, kind of like taking my experiences. Cause I really liked this, like, there's so much you can do when you're just like playing, when you're just
Yeah.
enjoying that safe space, when failure doesn't exist, like everything you say is right. So, yeah, and that was, I don't know, 4 years ago when I originally got into it.
And and you were kind of, so it sounds like the kind of improv stuff came out of your startup journey or is intertwined. Did you sort of first engage as a participant in improv and then kind of graduate to a bit of a moderator? Or is that something that, have you sort of particularly worked on those skills? Because I felt like you really lit up the room with moderation. You knew how to get everybody engaged. And I wonder, is that a different, I assume there's like a different skill kind of required that than rather than just kind of being a participant?
Yes. I mean, I took classes for a long time. At this current stage, I really enjoy teaching it more than I enjoy. I still enjoy practicing improv, but there's something really fun that comes out of engaging other people and having this safe and delightful space. And I don't. I like the word moderating better because I don't really see. I don't think I would have much fun in teaching aspiring comedians.
Right.
Like if someone's like, I want to be famous doing this, I don't know. I might not be the person to help you. But I think for a lot of people who are seeking a way to get in touch with that part of themselves that just enjoys feeling free to be silly, to say absurd things, to kind of go to the depths of their own imagination, like that's what I really enjoy and moderating that.
Right. And is that something that so is the startup journey that you began, is that still continuing today, or is that kind of wound down and you're engaged in something else professionally right now?
I am the COO of a startup, so I'm in a different facet than what I was doing before. I still feel like there's so much. Improv for me has been transformative to kind of how I see the world, and in addition to that, how I see my own startup journey. Kind of this idea that we are constantly pivoting. There is no failure. So when people say fail fast, fail forward, I was like, well, as long as you're thinking of it as failure, you're really just not going to have a lot of fun. But if we're looking at it as this constant conversation between customers and entrepreneurs, then it makes it a lot easier to just take feedback, iterate, and there is no fear of failure. So it is definitely still part of my life in that way. I still teach workshops that are more geared towards improv for startups. I've done like improv for sales, improv for marketing, and it's a lot more aligned to just helping people engage a more creative and interactive way of learning that involves no spreadsheets.
And do you take that internally at your current company and your current role as COO, or do you take that out with third-party companies? And how does your moderation or engagement with this work?
It's just been separate from my day job, but more because it is my passion, is really helping people trust themselves, helping people have fun. And so, I mean, if anyone reaches out to me, I'm happy to teach a workshop. I love it. So,
yeah.
Right.
What was that startup journey like? It sounds like it was a pretty challenging one. Like, what would you tell yourself if you could go back and give yourself some advice through that process now, knowing what you do?
It's hard to think about giving advice to myself because I feel like I'm grateful for the experience now, even though it was a really tough one. But I probably would have told myself, don't do this. or, I don't know.
Were there things about your experience that kind of given that you've been through it now, that you can see, this kind of thing I want to correct for in the future? I want to sort of avoid other, in a sense, maybe you call it red flags or certain organizational, customer, structural, team things that you'd want to sort of navigate toward or away?
Yes, I think for me, so much of that, my first startup taught me lessons around like increasing my focus, not trying to do so many things all at the same time, I feel like I really experienced a lot of burnout that, I think having more focus would have really helped. I like now in my current day job, but then also like what I've done with improv of like thinking about just like what it takes. What does it truly take to ask for the higher price? That I feel like a lot of times people have fear around the pricing. Monetization brings in a lot of fear of rejection. So, but that is like, the top way to drive profitability. So I like to do a lot of exercises and just kind of like think about what would it take to like, one, increase your price, two, practice those conversations, three, like think about your value proposition in a way of like, what is the true pain that this could create for someone and the true benefit or relief that someone would have. And I think a lot of times we underestimate other people's pain, and as a result, we underestimate our value. But like I think when it comes to really spending time with customers or users, that like the more that we can understand that, the more we can convey our value. So,
these things that are closely coupled, like when you're trying to explain to somebody how to think about pricing or how to maybe your advice would be like, be more bold about that. But is it like a role play, or is it using specific improvisational kind of techniques to practice that, or do those tie in closely?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in my day job, and I do a lot of my sales are like direct to consumer e-commerce sales. So I'm not actually talking directly to customers as a part of like my sales process. But I am thinking a lot about like the copy that we use, the images, how we're thinking about the benefits when it does come to the aspects of sales that are like where I would have direct interaction with a partner or a client. I do try to get in the world, and I think improv helps with that of like, okay, what does their day look like? What are their pain points? Am I underestimating, what they're going through? What's keeping them up at night? Do I understand that? Where are aspects where maybe I need to ask them a few more questions to confirm? So those are things that I think about in my day job. When it comes to improv, I like to do a lot of exercises around helping people understand the point at which they experience fear when it comes to having conversations with clients. So some people, it's like, oh, I'm comfortable asking for $50, but I get kind of nervous at $95. But when we can understand kind of where our own feelings are, then I think that helps us understand, okay, well, what can I do to address those fears?
Do you find that there's...
Yeah, like how do you get your own objections out of the way, not just your customers' objections out of the way?
Yeah.
Do you find that there's Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, just really quickly on that, like, are there any, so if someone's kind of alone, are there any exercises that you have found useful in terms of addressing some of these areas or working through some of these things, even like not in a group setting or not in like an official improv setting?
Yeah, one that I found, and I think this is really helpful for like early stage entrepreneurs who do have some type of face-to-face contact with their clients, is stand in front of a mirror and say your price. You could say your whole tagline if you want, but say your price to the mirror, and then just go up, 10% or whatever, to the point where you kind of feel a knot in your stomach, and then keep going up until the point that you laugh. Just like practice saying it. Like,
That's awesome.
$80. Oh God, I don't know if they're going to go for that. But like, especially when you're in the mirror and you can like see your own reaction, where you can acknowledge where does your body language change,
Hmm.
Yeah.
and where do you think it's absurd, and then like kind of ask yourself like, what is crazy about that, and are you making any assumptions around why you think it's funny? Everyone's got a point, right? But like, I think that once we can see where our own feelings come into play, um, then we can, you can have that, you can kind of like do the self reflection.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. I wonder if actually you've seen or coached people around using. I can imagine if I'm staring into a mirror, I might actually get a lot of benefit from kind of putting my iPhone there and just capturing a video, so I can sort of kind of watch myself after the fact when I'm not as in it, but I can see my facial expressions or body language
Yeah.
and try to analyze it more. Have you seen or kind of talked about using recorded video as a helper there?
I have not done recorded video. I do recommend it for people who are doing salary negotiations, that
Mm.
they take on those same practices. But yeah, I've never recorded it. And I'm definitely one of those people who I don't like to watch myself on video.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but I think you're right. It would probably be very helpful.
Yeah. I really like that whole concept of just like push till you feel discomfort and then keep going until you laugh. Like for
Mm, yeah.
anything, not just naming a number, but like any situations that we sense are causing us anxiety, like let's just make them extreme, so extreme that like you are able to kind of take a step back, like look at them in a more lighthearted way, and then think about like what about the situation was or is the stressor, and then maybe like break it apart and deal with it piece by piece.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. I think there's another exercise that I find is helpful is, so perhaps there's a point where you really feel like your customer would say yes to you. Like, if I said, hey, would you like this Cheesecake Factory gift card for $10 or something like that. So there's a point where they're going to say yes. It's okay. Well, let me see how much farther I can go where they'll still say yes, and then just keep going, like being like, okay, well, would you like this gift card for $20 or $30, and just keep pushing, keep saying, if they're going to say yes to this, then what else will they say yes to? And generally, I mean, I think sometimes people stop short, so they'll say, "Oh, I got a yes," but it's like, okay, well, if you offered them a price, would they be fine paying 10% higher? You'll never know till you get a no. So, I think the comfort. It's important to build comfort with pushing on the yeses and pushing until you get a no, or pushing beyond when you get a no.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
reminds me of there was a popular trend, maybe a little bit of a niche community, but there was a popular trend of people trying to get a single no each day in their lives. I forget
Yes.
what that was called. Do you
Yeah.
recall? This was, I don't know, 5, 8 years ago. I saw a lot of
Um,
this where people would just ask. I remember one example, somebody like saw a guy in one of those like, like a construction projects, and he went up to him and he asked him if he could drive the big construction vehicle because he thought that would get him a no. And the guy was like, "Yeah, sure, come on here."
he wrote a book. It was called 100 Days of Rejection, I believe. And
Oh, I've heard of that. Yeah.
yeah, really fascinating. But I think this idea that like, I think we a lot of times see rejection as this really scary thing. Um,
Hmm.
and that maybe there could be some fun and delightful of like, maybe if I ask, I will get the yes instead of getting the no. So
Yeah, I think it's nice to kind of exercise the muscle a little bit of like what it feels like to be okay with that kind of experience and just, keep moving on. It doesn't kill you. You kind of, you get over it and you find sort of, in a sense, that's a good way to grow, is to always be kind of pushing the boundary on, these kinds of things, even if they're smaller, someday they'll be large, right?
so
Yeah. Also reminds me of like Chris Voss and his negotiation thing. I think he talks about like how no is actually a great thing to hear. People are so scared of hearing no, but if someone says no to you, they're actually very clearly communicating their preferences and desires in a way, and you at least have like some data you can work with after that point.
Yep.
So not like fearing the no.
Yep.
Yeah. So when you were kind of talking about the work you do in kind of your professional life, and then the work you do in kind of let's say improv moderation,
Mm-hmm.
it sounds like they used to be more intertwined, and maybe over time, maybe some of the techniques are in common, but that they're more separate in your life when you sort of engage with one or the other. Is that kind of is that a characterization?
Well, doing for me as COO of a company, and we launch a lot of consumer products. We do a lot of Kickstarters, who's bringing a lot of new products to market. So I wouldn't say that I am moderating improv workshops
Right.
as part of my day, but I do think that the practices around improv are just continuously with me in terms of what it takes to grow a startup. Generally does take pushing the bounds of will what can we do, what can I'd say the imaginative process of what could we offer,
Mm-hmm.
how do we build upon our successes and really yes and our successes.
Mm-hmm.
And then also just like there is no such thing as failure. There is nothing to be afraid of. There's always a way, the pivoting is life, pivoting is conversation, pivoting is like everything that we're doing. So there really isn't I think that taking failure off the table is pretty transformative to like building a vision for what a startup could be.
Right.
Yeah.
But I had a specific question I wanted to ask you, but certainly, you could feel free to tell me this is not your interest. But when I see what you're doing, it feels to me like it's a very creative act that gets a lot of people together. And I think about sort of what's happening in the world today with kind of, the passion economy, the creator economy, et cetera. And it feels like there's both like the structure of kind of how you run these things as well as how you get people participating. It feels like a very new thing that could be almost like could be something at a really big scale someday. So I wonder, like, do you think, like, would that take the fun out of it for you, or would you like be excited to explore that path, or how do you think about that?
I am exploring that path. And I've thought about a couple of ways. I've thought about taking some of the improv activities that I've had and like building it into a game. So whether it's like a digital game, whether it's a physical card game, I do think that there's some of the things that the games that are really fun to play that like could be very easily built into a set of rules or mechanics that someone could have in physical cards, could have on a screen on a computer. So I've thought about that. I've also thought about offering more course type of workshops that could be self-guided. Although that would be way less fun for me because I enjoy moderating.
Right.
But I do want to make some of the activities more accessible for people. And that's really important for me. It's like, I want to make this, it's not really about improv, but it's more around, what are some ways that people can unlock their own play and creativity and do cool things with it? And especially like to do that for people who are in the startup community, who have creative ideas but are struggling with how do they convey it. And I think improv has some really cool techniques around that. I don't see myself as being some type of like, I'm going to serve millions, no billions. No, I don't. no. I mean, there's a point where I'm like, would that be as fun? So would that be as fun for me?
Right.
So
It sounds like you like the moderation piece and sort of the, maybe if I could term it like the empowering other people to discover their creativity, or sort of enabling people to kind of work with their creativity.
yes, I've been building out more workshop content. So I've done a number of workshops that were kind of more geared for like an open set of entrepreneurs like the Renaissance Collective.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been trying to work on some that were more geared for like a specific company and that has a specific set of challenges, and building out a curriculum that was, I think, a little bit more intensive in nature. So I'm working on that. Stay tuned. But
Right.
I don't. I want to still play around. Yeah, I'd say I'm still yes-anding and
Yeah.
exploring like what could be the balance of what I could do. If you guys have any suggestions, let me know, because I'm definitely willing to explore.
Yeah. Well, I was kind of like asking Jen if she knew much about what you had in mind, because, you know, when I saw what happened there, I was like, this should be a thing. This should just be like every week on Saturday, I can show up if I want, and maybe I'm like participating, or maybe I'm kind of just like spectating and kind of figuring it out. But it feels to me like it's such a moment of like fun and collaboration that, you know, I think like just doing the thing you did, which you seem to like, I think you could build an audience around that. And if you build an audience around that, you could build a personal brand. Like, and you're not trying to be in the spotlight. You're trying to empower people, which
Yep.
to me, it feels like a magical kind of set of incentives to like assemble the audience, but then don't hog the audience. You're going to like share the audience and spread the love around. Right. So I wonder, like, if, you know, I mean, I think the things you're doing, like building, you know, specific coursework and stuff and curriculum, certainly serves like specific kind of business needs. But kind of, there's also, I think, this opportunity to just do what you were doing and having fun with, and but build an audience and brand around you as that person. And, you know, people, like, if it happens on a regular basis, people know to invite their friends, and, oh, did you hear that thing's happening, and check that out. And I think you can almost like build, I mean, when I told Jen, I was like, you know, the someday, you know, fast forward the world 10, 20 years, there's going to be a new kind of Saturday Night Live type thing, and
Yeah.
it's going to start with somebody just playing. You know, it's not going to be like, it's not going to be, you know, the old structures kind of got created around like the TV networks and the, you know, the feeder, like the Second Cities of the world and the feeder kind of schools. And I think a lot of that stuff is going to come online, and then just all, it's just all going to happen online. And so, in a sense, if you can find people who are not plugged into the system and not even maybe aspiring to be in the system, they don't even know they have this talent, and you can like both help them discover it and then help them become like connected to all the other people who are discovering it. That to me feels like a really cool thing in the world, that like, it just seems obvious to me that like the world needs that. I don't know exactly all the details for how it gets worked out, but anyway, I'll pause there and see what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I've definitely I've thought about finding some more ways to have this on a recurring basis. I don't. I'm kind of at this point where I'm like, should I be calling this improv? Because does that scare people? Um, so, is there some other word that I should be using? I think if I just say fun and games, that's also like a little too generic. So I was like, I gotta find a better name to call this. But I do want to have it offered more often. I want to have some that are, more. I've thought about, should I do an event like this that's geared towards singles or geared towards professional networking? I think I am the person when it comes to like going. I'm so glad with the pandemic that I don't have to go to professional networking events.
Nice, yeah.
Yeah, like that. I would give myself like a 2-hour limit and be like, okay, 7 people and I'm out of here. I want to find a way that we can incorporate some fun and games, and then in a way that helps people also talk about themselves and share of themselves, so that the room is getting to know each other.
Yeah.
So I'm always I like coming up with different activities and games for like different purposes. That's like the curriculum builder in me. And so, yeah, I mean, I never actually thought about doing it weekly. I was thinking before maybe monthly, but now if y'all like it, I think, so
that'd be so cool.
Another thing I think that we've found, so Mishti and I host this Building in Public show every day. And I think one thing that we've found is just by having a slot in a schedule, then when you bump into people and you have kind of like something to point them to. So you bump into people like, oh, you host comedy things? Cool. When's the next one? When can I go? You're like, oh, it happens every Saturday or what, every Tuesday evening or whatever. And it kind of becomes a little bit of like your placeholder to point people towards when they want to engage with that aspect of what you're doing. And I think, it maybe seems obvious, but I think, we weren't even doing, when did we start Lunch Break Building in Public? That was maybe, I don't know, maybe
January,
4 months ago. Yeah, something, it's relatively recent, but the kind of consistency, I mean, we are here every day. There's never a day where we don't show up. And if we don't have anything to do, we just, hang out and read Twitter together and share links. And then, we invite people, and sometimes scheduling doesn't work. But I think there's like a certain like, I don't want to call it seriousness, but there's like a certain like calling card that you establish by having a time that it's going to happen and you're going to be there and it's going to go. And then it helps you sort of point people towards it. So I mean, not to say that the week cadence is more important than the monthly. I mean, I think, kind of whatever's right for you and your schedule and people, but I think having some, maybe even a brand around it that you call it like, Nonyas Creativity Hour. I don't know what the right brand is for this, but something that helps people know when they can engage with you next.
Yeah, I'm like, I love this feedback. I mean, this is great. All right. I will share a link in the next couple of weeks that is a follow-up to this.
Yay. Cool. That'd be really cool. Yeah. Because I think, like DK, you were even thinking about it or mentioning it in terms of, we talk about like when we have guests on Building in Public or founders building in their companies, oftentimes like they have their pitch and they have their deck and it's very rehearsed, and like that's not actually that interesting for anyone. If you have people in a conversation and they stay on those like highly kind of practiced lines and that layer. So I think DK was mentioning like, what if you had improv style exercises for founders or companies? Maybe they even have like investors in the room or recruits in the room or something, like people who want to get hired as well, and just like whatever you can do to get to a more personal, authentic layer quickly of like communication.
I've done a couple activities around kind of like the pitch or the tagline, and I think it's helpful. A couple of the activities I've had where it's like getting people to play your target audience, but then having that switch out. And so that, and I think to a certain extent, forcing people to switch up their talking points, where I think kind of the traditional mantra is like, practice it, get it right, stay within your lane. It's helpful to also push people to say, no, try something new every time. Try, that this could be different. It could be different adjectives. It could be, I don't know, trying a different pace. different volume, but like
Yeah.
insisting that people, explore what else could be done and take it as an experiment.
Yeah, I find that one of the things that, in either pitches that I, hear people giving around kind of early stage companies, the things that work well is when people do feel like they're a little bit off script and they're just like, they're just telling you what they're excited about because they're, they're just passionate about this thing. And in my own life, when I talk about like what we're building at Highlighter, I find that one of the things that helps me is when I share with a bunch of people and then they react, and then I can incorporate their reaction into my future description of what we're doing. Kind of helps me evolve my language by hearing, like, I hear like a magic, 2-word way to explain to me, like, oh, I'm going to incorporate that into the way we explain what we're doing, which came oftentimes as a reaction from somebody. So I wonder if there's almost like these improv spaces that can help kind of in the pitch process. It also reminds me of, have you ever heard of Speechless?
What is it?
This is hilarious. So Speechless is an improv group. I'm going to get the URL right here. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to screen share for a moment, just because there's so Speechless is be yourself and be heard. So you show up on stage, and they start showing a slide deck, but you don't know what's going to show up on the slide deck.
Yeah.
And so you have to like speak to a slide deck that you've never seen before.
The bold sell competition that I did was like that. It was.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, it was you know that they're going to pop up like a product slide and an audio slide, but you don't know what's going to be on it until you're speaking. And then they had like 7 or 8, and you just go for a couple minutes. I find that like even if you're a way to practice that, if you were by yourself, like I don't know. I know this site has been rebranded, but Stumble Upon as basically a way to just like pull up random websites and it's a cool exercise for people who are kind of struggling with like, how do I pull this back to something that I want to talk about or something that I'm engaged? Just go on Stumble Upon. Picture of flowers. I love flowers. That totally reminds me of this florist who was on Highlighter, and
right.
So you can just practice pulling things back. So
so Stumble Upon you would use as like a way to seed serendipity or randomness into kind of a pitch or discussion process. Is that what you're saying?
To practice like pulling things back to something that a topic that I wanted to like engage in, or if there was something where it's like I need to say this, but I don't know what they're going to say next, and it's just like practice. Okay, if they, if some random thing comes up, then how do I pivot?
Right.
That's fun. That's like Wikipedia random article almost. You could keep clicking and do something similar.
Do you sort of identify as a creator on the internet? Like either as a writer or a speaker or anything like that?
No, I do not. I've thought about, I have attempted to write blogs, and I have a lot of things that I would want to share to the world, but I struggle in so many ways because I think for improv, has me very comfortable at like just speaking off the cuff. And then when I'm writing, I'm like, oh my God, I can see the words I just wrote. The urge to edit just takes over. And then I don't actually, it'll be like 3 hours and I'm still on 2 sentences that I've rewritten 188 times. So, I don't think that's the medium for me.
Right.
Now that, Twitter and all these other companies are coming up with their, alternatives to Clubhouse. I think this is really interesting. I've thought about that. I am going to be soon launching a series of videos on another passion of mine, margaritas, because I like to make margaritas. I don't see this as a content. I would not define myself as a content creator. It's more of just like hey, I actually want to share some of the margarita recipes I have with people that I know.
Yes, that's awesome.
And how does that work? Do you have like, are you going to be kind of actually mixing things and showing kind of the process, or showing kind of more ingredients and recipes, or how does it work in your mind?
Yeah, just showing how I make certain margaritas. But this is, I don't think it is not important to me that I have a massive audience of engaged margarita fans.
Sure. Yeah.
I want to make this because I love it, and I know some people are like, "Oh, show me how you make a margarita," and I want to have a link to throw their way. But yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that's great. I would almost, I think you have a great attitude in that you're doing it more out of like stuff that you're actually interested in versus necessarily wanting to try to, you know, build a certain type of audience. But I also would point out that, like, I think with such kind of, in a sense, I don't know how to call it, pure motivations, like you just like have the energy for it. It almost seems like, you know, why not get more of it out in whatever format you feel comfortable. If you like feel comfortable on video, do video. But whatever format you're comfortable with, get it in a place where it can live. You know, get it on YouTube where it could live and people could discover it. And you might find that there's like, you know, kindred spirits and other margarita communities, or kind of, you know, maybe there's other types of creative communities that you would connect with. So I think that's great. I wouldn't be shy about the fact that, you know, you have this passion, but getting it out in some format, even if it's not perfectly polished,
Yeah.
because, you know, I think actually making YouTube videos, I don't know if that's what you have in mind, but sometimes it's like quite a heavy lift to have, like, you know, the right intro music and the screens and
Yeah.
thumbnails and stuff. So do you think much about sort of how you would do production to make something like that work?
I I have not thought a lot about the production element. I thought a lot about the margaritas, but I haven't thought so much about it. I do have a few folks in my family who are in the like video editing, video production world. So I very likely what I will do is create some of these to see how I feel about it. And I think from there, like, yeah, maybe potentially like find a bigger kitchen, or, you know, better get some better lighting for, a light box or something like that, to showcase these. And so I could definitely go down that journey and see that happening. And yeah, like everything, it is iterative. I really like where you guys are going in terms of like thinking about just getting cool ideas out in the world and actually having people see it. I think for me, so much of how I've approached it is like, if I'm enjoying it, I don't spend a lot of time thinking about like how many people are loving it.
Right.
I think about that a lot at work, but not so much in my personal life.
Right. But I almost feel like probably, you know, if each one could borrow from the other, like maybe work could borrow some more of the fun and pure energy, and maybe the pure energy you could sort of say, well, look, as long as I'm doing it, you know, might as well put it places where, you know, it could get discovered, right? Because, you know, I think almost like the pure energy is almost like more rare these days. Everybody's almost like got an angle of trying to accomplish a certain thing, and like if you're just like, look, I love margaritas,
Well,
you know,
if
it's a
y'all
great way to connect with people.
Highlighter and show you the ultimate way to make a margarita. I can do skinny, spice,
Let's do it.
vanilla.
Margaritas in public.
Yeah, we can do a little happy hour.
Have you talked to Valentine from Renaissance Collective?
And Leon.
No.
They're both really into cocktails. I think both of them.
Sorry,
both
you're
of
right.
Them.
It's Leon.
No, both of them.
They both are? Okay. Because I think, does Leon do a certain type of cocktail?
Leon actually like had some sort of community that he was organizing in New York City of people who were like super into cocktails, and it was like his cocktail tasting club type thing or something before COVID.
That's awesome.
Sounds up your alley
awesome.
potentially. Where are you based right now?
Yeah, I'm in LA.
Okay, nice.
Have you been there for a while, or is that kind of that's been home for
I've
life?
been
Or
here since September, so I did move in the pandemic. I was living in Philly for the past 10 years before that, and
Hmm.
um, I was kind of city hopping for a few years before that. I had lived in like 7 different cities. So being here in LA is so cool. I love it. I love just compared to the East Coast where I'd have to like drive like 2 or 3 hours to get to the beach. And now I'm like,
Hmm.
oh, yeah, go anytime. Um, yeah, I'm really enjoying it out here.
So do you feel like LA is going to be home for pretty indefinite future?
Who knows? I haven't really. I haven't done a lot of long term planning as it relates to location. I think after being
Yeah.
in one place for 10 years, it's like I
Hmm.
thought it was going to be permanent and it wasn't. And I haven't really planned for any, yeah, I haven't planned an end date. So.
Hmm. What do you think about when it sounds like the beach is one of the things, like accessibility to the beach is kind of generally outdoor stuff important when you think about where you're living?
Um, I love being near the beach. I also like that LA does have a really large creative community.
Yeah.
And so I think the negative stereotype about LA is that like everyone's, an aspiring actor who, will do anything for fame and, is kind of like, um, I guess, blindly ambitious and
Mm.
maybe with not the best intentions or maybe superficial. I think that's the negative stereotype about LA. I think what I'm seeing and really enjoying here is there's a lot of people who are like myself, really enjoy creative spaces, really enjoy having like a physical environment with a lot of art,
Yeah.
and that there is a very open sharing of ideas. It's not cutthroat. People
Hmm.
are really collaborative. So I like that, and I'm really enjoying that so far.
Do you think is that something kind of that's come out of the history of LA being kind of, the movie industry and the TV industry and music, or is it something that's more modern, you think, culturally because of maybe kind of how people collaborate on the internet?
It's a hard for me to say an answer to that based on how new I am. But yeah, it's kind of hard for me to answer that. I would definitely say I was really pleasantly surprised by, yeah, just how kind people are, how collaborative people are here. So.
That's cool. And I think we got connected through Renaissance Collective, right?
Mhm.
And how did you get connected to Renaissance Collective?
How did I? I randomly came across a link at the time that I saw it. I was job hunting, and I saw this description, and it was like smart generalist. I don't remember what else I saw, but I was like, that sounds like me. I've switched a few careers in my life, oh, several times, and so yeah. And then I just applied, and then I found out that Jen and I had some mutual friends, so that was kind of like a cool plus. But yeah, I didn't really know a lot of people beforehand. It's been nice that through the community, I met a few people where we did actually have a lot of mutual connections. But yeah.
That's how Misty and I met too.
Oh,
Yeah,
cool.
I feel like I've met so many incredible human beings just through Renko this year. I feel like I have very deep internet friendships now, like largely because of Renko, and it's been fun to sometimes meet some of them in person. Like DK and I have only met in person once, which is kind of crazy to me.
Right.
I feel like I'm gonna be shocked when I next see you in person. Like you're a real 3D human, like with volume.
Oh my god. Yeah, I say that to my team sometimes because we all work remotely, and I'm like, I could be a mermaid and you wouldn't know because we've really only known
Yeah.
each other. Like,
Right.
Yeah.
Are you guys going to be all remote after the pandemic stuff, or?
yeah, I mean, I don't. It's hard for me to imagine like why. I keep asking like, why would I go back to an office? The company that I'm working for now um, started in February of 2020, so it was like right before. So we never actually had a physical space.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Cool. So it's kind of grown up organically through kind of the COVID era. It grows up kind of as
Yep.
a distributed company.
Yep. Exactly.
That's cool. Well, I know we are getting towards the end of the hour. This has been a lot of fun. Before we wrap, I wanted to at least start by thanking you for spending the time with us and for both sharing your kind of improv experience and sharing how that relates to business um, and then also kind of entertaining some of our random brainstorms about this stuff, because I think there's cool stuff that you're really nearby here, and I think it'd be fun if if we can watch you on that journey and see that. But we have a typical kind of wrap question that I wanted to pose, and we kind of like to just ask, it's a broad question, which is like, what are you curious about today? And so it could be something that's super serious, could be something that's super funny and lighthearted. It doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be super weighty, but are there certain areas, that you're maybe reading or thinking about or kind of trying to kind of discuss with people to sort of bring your curiosity to more kind of exploration?
I am curious about two things right now. I'm curious about how to make cryptocurrency more accessible, how to make it more accessible for, the amateur investor, how to make it more accessible for people who maybe don't have the means to do a lot of or maybe have low financial literacy. That's one thing. I'm curious about reparations. I think it's a really, really interesting topic. A lot of reparations has been framed in the United States around kind of like economic justice for descendants of slavery. But I would like to explore what other ways reparations could be applied to just like other ways of looking at it. It could be economic justice for civil rights abuses, which goes far beyond slavery. Those are top two things that I think about. It's way more serious and than what we spent the remaining 50 minutes talking about, but they're subjects that I care about a lot, and I want to learn more about. I want to understand different perspectives on how things could be done.
Yep. Do you have any favorite, I don't know if there are blogs or Twitter accounts or kind of books, maybe? Do you have any reading materials that you could recommend, that might help somebody interested in those topics to dig in a little bit deeper?
For cryptocurrency, one that I've just been following for my own engagement is CoinGamma, CoinGamma. So I like that one. For reparations, I've been listening to a couple of podcasts. There's a really good topic. It was just a single podcast on, what was it? Code Switch has got some great content on that. United States of Anxiety. There's a couple other reparations specific podcasts, but those are the top ones that come to mind. Those are the top things on my mind.
Cool. I got CoinGamma and Code Switch. And what was the third one that you mentioned?
Oh, United States of Anxiety, which is I believe also on NPR. It is a really great podcast.
Cool. I'm going to share I see that's WNYC.
Yeah.
Yep. Great. Okay, I'm going to share the. Oh, yeah, I'm going to share the links to that
Cool.
so we can follow along. Great. Well, this has been a lot of fun for us. Thanks for sharing all of your thinking and your curiosities. And yeah, we're excited to have you visit, and we'll get some highlights out for you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks. Yeah, this was really fun.
Okay. See you,
Alrighty.
Nonya.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.